Hey folks, it's Caleb here. Picture this. Your wife of 14 years sits across from you, looks you square in the eye, and says without a single tear, I want it all. The house, the cars, the business, everything. No apology, no explanation. Just calm, cold certainty. Like the life we built together, the two kids we raised, the decades of hard work, were nothing more than items on a list she was ready to check off. Most men would have fought tooth and nail. I didn't. I signed the papers and gave her every single thing she demanded. Everyone thought I'd lost my mind. My lawyer begged me to stop. My mother cried herself to sleep. My brother, the man who runs into burning buildings, couldn't look me in the eye. What they didn't know was that I'd already discovered the truth. Nearly $500,000 she'd quietly stolen from the family business my father built with his own hands. And the only way to make her truly answer for it was to let her take ownership of every lie she'd told. Because when she signed those papers, she didn't just take my future. She took full responsibility for her own crimes. My name is Caleb Harlan. This is the story of how a quiet man from Ohio lost everything on paper and watched justice unfold without ever raising his voice. It all started in a modest neighborhood just outside Akron, Ohio, the kind of place where folks still wave from porches and kids ride bikes until the streetlights come on. My dad, Hank Whitaker, was the plumber you called when disaster struck. Not the late arriving, overcharging type. The real deal. He started Whitaker Plumbing in 1989 from our old barn behind the house. One rusty van, a toolbox full of memories, and a work ethic that never quit. He believed if you did the job right, the work would always find you. I was 10 the first time I rode along. A bakery downtown had a main line burst, water everywhere, dough ruined, ovens dead. Dad worked knee-deep in water until 4 a.m. When we finished, the owner shook his hand and said, You saved my business tonight, Hank. On the drive home, Dad looked at me and said, 2 rules, son. Do the work so well they have no choice but to call you back. And never let your name get dirty. Those words became the compass of my life. Why older brother Mason chose a different path. He became a paramedic, the calm one who keeps his head when everything is chaos. He always teased me that plumbing was too slow. I always told him running into fires was too fast. We respected each other's roads. We still do. I stayed with the pipes. I loved the logic of it. Pressure, flow, connections. Find the problem, fix it right, leave things better than you found them. By 16, I could sweat copper cleaner than most grown men. By 20, I was running small crews on commercial jobs. Dad left us too soon. Heart attack in the warehouse at 61. I found him Tuesday morning, still holding a pipe cutter, slumped over his workbench. The doctor said it was quick. Said he probably didn't feel a thing. I was 31. Whitaker Plumbing had grown to 14 employees, 4 trucks, a reputation that opened doors across the state, and more debt than anyone knew. Dad never let the books show how tight things were. He just worked harder. I took over. Paid off the quiet loans. Kept every man on payroll. Swore on Dad's old toolbox I'd protect the name he'd built. That's when I met Brooke. She was the receptionist at a big outpatient center on the east side. We'd won the contract to repipe the whole facility. New wings, updated restrooms, full sprinkler system. I walked in covered in demo dust, asked for the facilities manager. She looked up, smiled, and said, You must be the guy who's about to make my life noisy for the next 3 months. I laughed. She laughed louder. By the end of the job, we were having coffee on her lunch breaks. We dated a year. Nothing fancy, just real. Long drives on back roads, weekend hikes, dinners at little diners where the waitress knew your name. We married on a warm September afternoon at a park overlooking the Cuyahoga River. Mason's toast had everyone in stitches. Mom cried happy tears for the first time in years and whispered during our first dance, She looks at you like you hung the moon, baby. Emma came 2 years later, big brown eyes, my dimples, a laugh that filled rooms. Jackson arrived 3 years after, wild, fearless, always climbing something, determined from day one to be just like Dad. Those first 8 or 9 years were long, hard, and good. 60 to 70-hour weeks chasing commercial contracts, schools, hospitals, factories, office buildings. We gutted and rebuilt our house ourselves. Mason helped frame the new kitchen. We spent 2 summers on it. Money wasn't pouring in, but we were moving forward. The kids had a yard, food on the table, parents who showed up for every game, every school play, every parent-teacher conference. I thought we were building something unbreakable, Then, around year 9 or 10, the air changed. It wasn't one big fight. It was slow. Like rust you don't notice until the pipe bursts and floods the basement. Brooke stopped asking about my day. Started sighing when I came home late, still smelling like solder and sweat. The house we'd renovated together suddenly felt too small. The minivan was embarrassing. Friends were taking European vacations, remodeling kitchens with marble islands, buying new SUVs. Why are we still standing still, Caleb? We're not standing still, I'd say. We're building something real. Something the kids can inherit. Something solid. She'd look out the window, voice flat. Everyone else is living. We're just existing. I told myself it was the weight of raising 2 kids mostly alone while I worked impossible hours. I told myself if I landed bigger jobs, brought home more money, gave her the things she kept asking for, she'd feel secure again. I told myself a lot of things I hired Tyler Grant to handle the finances. The company had outgrown my late-night spreadsheets and shoebox receipts. A contractor friend recommended Tyler. Said he was organized, professional, came with strong references. Tyler arrived for our first meeting in a crisp blazer, laptop ready, talking cash flow, tax strategies, growth projections. He made me feel like I'd been doing everything wrong my whole life. But he could fix it that I was exhausted. Marriage on thin ice. Kids needing baths and bedtime stories. I handed him full access, bank logins, vendor accounts, payroll, tax records. Everything Whitaker Plumbing had ever produced. Looking back, it was the single biggest mistake I ever made. Tyler started coming to the house sometimes. Quick questions about the books. Need your signature here. Brooke would light up, laugh louder at his jokes, fix her hair, ask about his weekend plans. She treated him like honored company. Me? I got one-word answers in the back of her head while she scrolled her phone. The signs were everywhere. Extra smiles. Late-night bookkeeping texts. The way she'd get dressed up for errands on Saturdays. Sudden interest in yoga classes that ran longer than they should. I saw them. I just refused to believe them. I trusted her. I trusted him. I trusted the life we'd built. Mom tried to warn me once. Grace Whitaker never wastes words. After Sunday pot roast, she caught me alone in the hallway. Caleb, something doesn't feel right with Brooke these days. And the way she acts when Tyler's around? It's different. Mom, we're just in a rough patch. Long hours. Kids. It'll smooth out. She looked at me with eyes that had already buried one love. Just watch, honey. I didn't listen. Then came the Wednesday in late March that changed everything. We had a major school district project lined up, full repipe on 3 buildings. The superintendent called at 7 a.m. Permits delayed, start pushed back 10 days. I decided to head home early. Stopped at the florist for lavender tulips, her favorite. Thought maybe surprise her. Maybe take the kids for mini golf after school, grab ice cream, pretend things were normal. I pulled into the driveway around 11:30. Her SUV was there. House looked quiet. I walked in, set the flowers on the kitchen island, called out. Brooke? You home? Silence. Figured she might be napping. She'd been complaining about migraines lately. I climbed the stairs. Bedroom door closed. Muffled voices. Movement. Low laughter. My stomach dropped before my brain caught up. I pushed the door open. There they were. Brooke and Tyler. In our bed. Middle of the day. Sheets tangled. In the room where Emma and Jackson still climbed in during thunderstorms. Where we used to read bedtime stories. Where we used to make love like we had forever. Time froze. I stood in the doorway holding tulips, staring at the 2 people I trusted most in the world, wrapped around each other like I didn't exist. Brooke gasped. Tyler scrambled for his pants. Something inside me went dead calm. Not hot rage. Just ice. Brooke, I said quietly. Let me guess. This isn't what it looks like. She yanked the sheet up like it could protect her dignity. Caleb, wait. I can explain. Explain what? How long you've been sleeping with my accountant. Or how long you've both been lying to my face every single day. Tyler tried to play it cool, stepping toward the door. Let's talk like adults, man. Things happen. Business is business. I stepped in front of him. You sat at my table for Thanksgiving. You high-fived my son after Little League. You shook my hand every week and told me we were partners. He shrugged. Things change. I grabbed his shirt collar and shoved him against the wall. I've never thrown a real punch in my life. Never been a fighter. But right then I wanted to erase him. Get out. Before I forget who I am. He left. Didn't even look at Brooke on his way out. She started crying. Real tears or fake? I couldn't tell anymore. Caleb, please. I was lonely. You're never here. You stopped seeing me. I needed to feel wanted. I worked 70 hours a week to give you the life you kept asking for. The house we renovated. The kids' activities. The vacations when we could afford them. Everything. And this is how you repay me. Maybe if you were around more. Maybe if you tried harder. I laughed once, short, hollow. I gave you everything I had, Brooke. Every piece of me. She looked away. It still wasn't enough. I walked out that night. Drove to Mom's house. Sat on her porch steps until the sun came up. Didn't cry. Didn't scream. Just sat there in the cold, replaying every small sign I'd ignored for years. That a week later she filed for divorce. And she didn't just want out. She wanted blood, the house we'd rebuilt together. Both vehicles. Primary custody of Emma and Jackson. Full ownership of Whitaker Plumbing. The company my father poured his life into. The company I spent 12 years growing, protecting, living for. Her demand letter arrived like a slap. She claimed she'd been an unpaid partner in the business. Said she deserved it all for years of emotional labor, domestic support, sacrifices she'd never mentioned until the moment it benefited her. Victor Lang, my attorney, read the letter over the phone and let out a long breath. Cal, this is borderline extortion. She has almost no legal claim to the business. We can fight tooth and nail. We'll win most of it back. I know we can. Then let's start drafting a counter. Not yet, Vic. I need to look at something first. That night, I went to the small office behind the warehouse. No lights on, just the desk lamp and 3 years of financial records spread across every surface. Bank statements, invoices, vendor payments, check images, tax filings. I started at the month Tyler came on board at BY1 a.m. I found the first red flag, a $12,400 payment to Precision Supply Company for copper piping and fittings. We'd never ordered from Precision Supply Company. The invoice looked legitimate, logo, address in Cleveland, itemized breakdown. But when I cross-checked our actual vendor logs, nothing that I kept going to BY Sunrise. I'd found 19 more fake invoices. Shell companies with names that sounded plausible. Payments wired to accounts that led nowhere. Fake vendor addresses, vacant lots, P.O. boxes. And on more than half the authorizing checks and wire approvals. Brooke's signature, nearly $487,000. 3 years of systematic theft. From the company my father built. From the family we were supposed to protect. My first instinct was to storm over there, throw the folder in her face, call the police, watch her crumble in real time. But then I stopped. Brooke wasn't stupid. She was careful. She'd spent years planning this. If I confronted her now, she'd panic, delete emails, destroy evidence, blame Tyler completely, cry victim. She'd drag it out in court for years while Emma and Jackson watched their parents tear each other apart. But I needed something cleaner. Something she couldn't undo. Something permanent. I called Mason the next afternoon. He came straight from a 24-hour shift, still smelling faintly of smoke and antiseptic. I handed him a beer and slid the thick folder across Mom's kitchen table that he flipped through slowly. His jaw tightened by page 3. By page 10 his knuckles were white. When he reached the last document, Brooke's signature on a $38,000 wire to a ghost company. He closed the folder and looked at me. Jesus, Cal. $500,000. Give or take. And she doesn't know you found it. Not a clue. He leaned back, rubbed his face, then let out a low whistle. A slow smile spread across his face. You're gonna let her take the company, aren't you? I nodded once. He stared at me for a long second, then started to grin. Slow, dangerous, proud. Little brother. You evil genius. The plan was simple, brutal, and perfectly legal. Let her win the divorce. Let her take full ownership of Whitaker Plumbing. Let her sign on the dotted line, accepting every asset and every liability. Once the company was legally hers, the fraud became her problem. Her signature on the checks, her name on the tax returns, her email linked to the shell companies, her exposure to federal wire fraud, embezzlement, tax evasion, conspiracy charges. But I couldn't do it halfway. I needed professionals who could make the evidence ironclad and quiet. Mason knew a forensic accountant through his work with fire department fraud investigations. 3 days later, I sat across from Elena Marquez in a plain office outside Columbus. Late 50s, reading glasses on a chain, yellow legal pads stacked like bricks. She looked like someone's quiet aunt. She was one of the best in the Midwest at tracing dirty money. I handed her everything. Every statement. Every fake invoice, every canceled check, every email I could recover from the company's server. She didn't blink. Just the facts, Mr. Harlan. I'll do the rest. 2.5 weeks later, she called me back. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. You have a textbook embezzlement scheme here. Coordinated, deliberate, at least 34 months. Wire fraud across state lines. Tax evasion. Conspiracy. Federal territory. What happens if Brooke becomes sole owner before the authorities move? I asked. Elena smiled for the first time. Then she inherits every single crime committed in the company's name. Every fraudulent transaction. Every false tax filing. Every dollar that vanished. All of it lands on her desk the moment she signs the transfer. I shook her hand. It felt like the first real breath I'd taken in months. The next 6 weeks were the hardest acting performance of my life. Mediation sessions. Settlement conferences. I had to sit across from Brooke and pretend I was defeated. I let her lawyer list demand after demand. I nodded. I looked down at the table. I sighed like a man who'd given up. Victor kept pulling me aside. Cal, I'm begging you. Let me object. We can keep the business, the house, most of it. No, I said every time. Trust me, my mom was the toughest. She showed up at my temporary apartment one night with a pan of lasagna and tears in her eyes. Caleb, that company is all we have left of your dad. You can't just hand it over to her. I took her hands. Mom, do you trust me? More than anyone. Then believe me when I say Dad would understand. Sometimes you lose the battle to win the war. She hugged me so tight, I felt her heartbeat. She didn't say another word about it. During those weeks, I spent every possible minute with Emma and Jackson. Mini golf on Saturdays. Ice cream runs after school. Helping Emma build a solar system diorama for her science fair. Teaching Jackson how to throw a perfect spiral in the backyard. I told them every single day that none of this was their fault. That I loved them more than anything in the world. That I'd always show up, no matter what. Because no matter what Brooke did to me, those two kids were the only thing that truly couldn't be taken. The final hearing was set for a chilly Thursday morning in November that I woke at 5 like always. Showered. Shaved. Put on the navy button-down Emma picked out for me last Father's Day. Looked in the mirror. I looked worn out. Older than 40. But underneath it all, steady. Today was the day. The courtroom was small, wood-paneled, lit by flat fluorescent lights. An American flag hung in the corner, slightly faded. It smelled like old paper and stale coffee. Brooke was already there. Cream blazer, hair perfect, makeup flawless. She looked like she'd already spent the money she was about to get. When she saw me, she gave that small, satisfied smile. The same one she'd given me years ago when I'd surprise her with flowers. Now it just looked like victory that I took my seat next to Victor. He leaned over. Last chance, Cal. I can still object. We can still contest the business transfer. This is your father's legacy. I looked straight ahead. No, we go through with it exactly as agreed. He exhaled hard. The judge entered. Judge Harlan, no relation. Late 60s, steel gray hair, eyes that had seen every version of heartbreak. She opened the file, read the terms aloud in a flat, professional tone. Transfer of marital residence at 214 Oak Ridge Lane to Brooke Harlan. Transfer of the 2020 Ford F-150 and 2022 Toyota Highlander to Brooke Harlan. Primary physical custody of the minor children, Emma and Jackson Harlan, to Brooke Harlan, with reasonable visitation for Caleb Harlan. Full ownership and control of Whitaker Plumbing, including all real property, vehicles, equipment, contracts, accounts receivable, bank accounts, and liabilities, transferred to Brooke Harlan. The word liabilities hung in the air like smoke. Judge Harlan looked over her glasses at me. Mr. Harlan, do you understand these terms? Yes, Your Honor. And are you entering this agreement voluntarily, without duress or coercion? Yes, Your Honor. Victor shifted beside me. Brooke's lawyer looked smug. Brooke looked like she'd already won. The judge slid the stack of documents across the bench. Very well. Please sign where indicated. I stood up slowly, walked to the bench, picked up the pen. Brooke watched me the whole time, barely hiding her glee. I signed every page, clear, steady, no hesitation. When I finished, I turned and looked at her for just a second. She was already whispering to her lawyer, probably planning how fast she could rebrand the trucks and cash out the accounts that I walked back to my seat. Victor wouldn't meet my eyes. The judge was about to close the file when the double doors opened. Two men in dark suits walked in. No rush, no drama, just calm, deliberate steps. Federal badges on their belts. One carried a thick manila envelope. The room went dead quiet. The lead agent walked straight to Brooke's lawyer. handed him the envelope. The lawyer opened it. His face changed in stages. Confusion, recognition, pure white shock. His hands trembled as he read. Brooke leaned over. "What is it? What's wrong?" He turned to her, voice barely above a whisper. "Tyler Grant was just arrested. Federal agents picked him up at his home an hour ago." For a heartbeat, Brooke didn't react. Then she snatched the document. Her eyes scanned the page. Color drained from her face. Her lips started to shake. Federal indictment. Wire fraud. Embezzlement. Tax evasion. Conspiracy to commit financial crimes. 2 defendants, Tyler Grant and Brooke Harlan. She shot to her feet, so fast her chair tipped over. No, no, this is a mistake. I didn't do anything. This was all Tyler. He handled the money. I just signed what he told me to sign." The lead agent stepped forward. "Ma'am, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Brooke spun toward me. Her perfect mask shattered. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. Her voice came out raw. "You did this. You set me up. You knew." I didn't move. Didn't blink. Just sat there, hands folded, looking back at her. "You gave me the company because you knew it was dirty," she hissed. "You let me take it so I'd take the fall. You planned this whole thing." Judge Harlan banged her gavel. Sharp. Twice. "Order. I will have order in this courtroom." But Brooke wasn't hearing it. She took 2 steps toward me. The bailiff caught her. "I'll destroy you, Caleb. I swear I'll destroy you for this." I stood slowly, buttoned my jacket, looked her straight in the eyes. "You already tried, Brooke. For 3 years. But here's the thing about building on lies. Eventually the foundation cracks, and everything comes down." The bailiff escorted her out. She was still screaming my name, half curse, half sob. When the doors slammed shut, the courtroom stayed silent for a long beat. Victor finally spoke. "You knew. The whole time you knew." I nodded once. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I needed it to be real, Vic. I needed her to believe she'd won. I needed her to sign those papers herself, taking full ownership, assets and liabilities. The second she did, the fraud became her legal responsibility." Victor let out a breath that sounded like relief and disbelief mixed. "In 28 years, I've never seen anything like this." I shook his hand. Then I walked out of the courtroom. The sun was breaking through the clouds outside. First time in weeks I'd noticed. It tasted clean. 6 months later, Tyler Grant didn't fight long. Plea deal within weeks. Guilty to 11 counts. 20 months in a federal facility in Kentucky. CPA license revoked the same day. The man who sat at my dinner table and smiled while stealing from my family now wakes up to concrete walls that Brooke's case dragged. 3 different lawyers, each one charging her more than the last. She claimed coercion. She claimed she didn't understand. She claimed Tyler did everything and she was just the trusting wife. None of it stuck. The forensic evidence was overwhelming. Her signature on every key document. Her email linked to shell companies. Bank records showing transfers to accounts she controlled. Elena's report was called a layup by the prosecutor. In the end, Brooke took a plea. 3 years probation. 200 hours community service. Full restitution. $487,000 plus interest and penalties. She couldn't pay. The house went into foreclosure 6 weeks after the divorce finalized. She couldn't make the mortgage once the business accounts were frozen. Bank took it back. Both vehicles repossessed the next month. Whitaker Plumbing dissolved. Contracts canceled. Equipment auctioned off. The trucks with my dad's name sold to strangers for pennies on the dollar. The company my father built from a single van in a barn gone. She lost everything she fought so hard to take. Not because I took it from her. Because she took it from herself. There was a moment early on when the satisfaction hit hard. Hearing about Tyler's arrest. Seeing the house auction notice. Reading her name in the business section under dissolution. A small, dark part of me wanted to feel triumphant, but that feeling faded fast. Revenge is a cheap high. It burns quick and leaves you empty. I didn't want to be chained to her anymore. Not even by anger. So I let it go. I started over with almost nothing. My tools. My truck I'd kept in storage. My reputation. I filed for Harlan Plumbing Solutions. Smaller. Cleaner. No partners. No outside accountants. Just me. A couple old crew members who came back day one, and the same work ethic Dad drilled into me. Danny Ruiz, my lead pipe fitter for 8 years, showed up the first morning with a thermos of coffee and a grin. "Heard you're starting fresh, boss. Pay's gonna be tight for a bit." "Yeah. Lean for a while." "Good." I'd rather work for an honest man making less than a crook making more. We landed our first contract 2 weeks later. A general contractor I'd worked with for years called personally. Cal, I've been in this business 28 years. I've seen guys go through hell like you did and come out bitter, broken, or bankrupt. You came out standing. That tells me everything I need to know. That call turned into referrals. Word spread, not the gossip, the real story. Within 3 months, we had more work than we could handle with 2 trucks. I hired 3 more guys. Bought a third van. Mom cried when she saw the new sign above the small shop I'd rented. Harlan Plumbing Solutions. She stood in the doorway, hand over her heart. Your dad would be so proud of you, Caleb. You stayed honest. You stayed patient. And you let the truth do the heavy lifting. Mason comes by every Sunday now. We sit on Mom's porch, crack open beers, watch the sun drop behind the trees. Sometimes we talk about Dad. Sometimes we don't talk at all. Either way, it feels like home. The custody arrangement got revisited after Brooke's legal troubles. Court gave me joint physical. Emma and Jackson with me every other week, plus most holidays and summers. It's not perfect, but it's fair. The kids are stronger than anyone gives them credit for. They ask questions. They get quiet sometimes, but they laugh a lot too. Emma asked me once, straight out, "Daddy, do you hate Mom for what she did?" I thought about it for a long minute. No, sweetheart. Hate is too heavy to carry. It weighs you down and keeps you stuck. Your mom made choices that hurt a lot of people, including herself. But hating her won't fix anything. The only thing I can control is how I move forward. And I choose to move forward with love for you, for your brother, and for this family we still have. She hugged me so tight, I felt her heartbeat against mine. Jackson's simpler. He just wants to play catch in the backyard, eat pizza on Fridays, and know I'll be there when I say I will. I've never missed a game. I never will. Looking back, I learned something hard-earned through all this. Strength isn't always about fighting louder or harder. Sometimes it's about stepping aside and letting the truth do the work. It's about protecting your integrity, your kids, and the people who matter, even when the world tells you to burn it all down. Brooke wanted everything. I gave it to her. Every lie, every stolen dollar, every consequence she'd earned over 3 long years. She thought she was taking my future. All she took was her own. And me? I'm still here. Still building. Still standing. Because some things can't be stolen. Character. Integrity. The love of your children. The respect of good people. Those have to be earned. And once you earn them, no one can take them away. That if you're going through something heavy right now, if someone has betrayed you, broken your trust, made you feel like you've lost everything, hear this, you haven't lost. Not yet. Not ever. As long as you stay true to who you are, as long as you keep moving forward with honesty and patience, you'll find your way through. The storm doesn't last forever, but the person you become while weathering it, that stays with you for life. My name is Caleb Harlan. That's my story. If this resonated with you, if it reminded you of hard times you've weathered, or the quiet strength it takes to keep going, drop a like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and leave a comment. Tell me, what part stayed with you the most? And if you're new here, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We drop real stories like this every week. Stories about everyday folks who got knocked down and got back up smarter. Thanks for watching all the way through. God bless, and I'll see you in the next one.